Hello and welcome. My name is William. Today we're going to be taking a look at cleaning and reassembling this Olympus OM 50mm 1.4. This is an older lens. I believe it came out in the early 80s. I recently purchased it, and there's quite a bit of dirt and gunk on the inside of this lens. So we're going to be taking a look, using some alcohol to clean the lens, and then reassembling it. I've got Q-tips here, and I've already gone ahead and taken apart the lens. This is the first time I've cleaned this particular Olympus lens, and it's the first time I've disassembled this particular Olympus lens. So it will be a learning process for the both of us. I'm going to start just by washing this inside lens element with alcohol, as well as this. This is the lens element that is exposed to the camera sensor, or the closest piece of glass to your camera sensor. I've also got here a microfiber cloth to help in the cleaning process. So I've got my microfiber cloth here, and I'm just gonna take it and wipe it along the outside of the lens here. I want to make sure I'm using a clean part of the cloth. I was wiping off some oil that had leaked onto the aperture of this particular lens earlier. One of the reasons this lens is so dirty is because I purchased this lens used, and with any used gear you don't always know what you're going to get. Fortunately, the lens was in perfect working order. However, just some minor cosmetic issues, and those can be taken care of very easily. This was the lens element that was the dirtiest here on the inside, so I'm going to take extra care into removing the dust and dirt. These lenses are very durable, and I'm always amazed at vintage lenses in general of how durable and well made they are. It really shows how strong metal is as a tool and a material. This area over here is quite oily, and when the lens is moved around and used for many years, the oil just moves around and gets everywhere, so you do have to watch that sometimes. You don't want it getting on parts that it's not supposed to, because that can affect the performance of the lens, as well as the clarity if it leaks into the lens elements themselves. A lot of times the aperture rings on lenses are what allows those vulnerabilities and that dirt to get in there, as well as any sort of exposed area. So any area where dirt can get in, it will get in, unfortunately. So we're gonna clean these threads here as well. You can just see there's quite a lot of dirt coming off of this. A little bit of it is residual grease, but this particular part of the lens doesn't necessarily need to have grease on it in order to function. So removing that will fix not only our issue of cleanliness, but also ensure that it doesn't continue. So I'm going to grab a new Q-tip. We're going to come in this inside area over here, and these are also threaded partially on the inside. So we're going to clean this area. And it does look like somebody is, besides myself, taken this lens before, because there are quite a bit of scratch marks. It doesn't look just like your average wear and tear, because normally people aren't taking these lenses apart, at least the average user. So now we've got this clean, there's no residue, it's pretty dry. The alcohol will remain in there for a little bit, but as long as it's not leaking and it's not a residual amount that will continue to move, you'll be alright. So let's see if we can remember how to put this back together. This is the next element we're going to be cleaning, and this will rotate and screw right into the top of the lens there. This is the element that had the most large pieces of dust, and looks like there's even some tiny hairs on it. And so this is a piece that I really wanted to get at, as well as the inside of it there. And we've already taken care of that, so we'll go ahead and dip in another little cotton swab. Clean off these grease marks, and doesn't look like there's anything too nasty on there. There are quite a few pieces of dust on that Q-tip though. So go ahead and get those off. And then I'm going to go in here and mop up the rest. So that inside is looking pretty good. We're going to head and work our ways out along the edges of this lens, and sort of feeling anywhere there shouldn't be grease, any sort of area that needs to be cleaned or wiped down. And it's not a bad idea just to do this in general. These areas, for example, seem to be carrying quite a bit of dirt and or grease residue, so I'm just gonna wipe the edge of it. I don't need to bring up any grime or dirt that isn't affecting anything. I don't want to loosen stuff up for it to have fall off inside the lens at a later date. So just getting the top layer off there. Now we're going to move on to the threads. So there's two section of threads. There's a smaller circle that has this piece of glass in it, and then on the back we have this larger circle which puts this lens in the actual lens there. So we're gonna clean this piece of glass real quick and get the inside grooves on the lens for that. Go ahead and buff it out. There's quite a bit of dust that can get caught in between the lens and these threads because it's such a tight space that you can't always get in, and you can't always see what's down there. So it's good just to run a microfiber or a cloth just to get those out. And we don't want any fingerprints, so that's always a must. Normally I wear some sort of glove when I do this, but I wasn't feeling like it today. Alright, so let's move on to the exterior threads. And these will get grease on them, and these will get dirt in them just by the nature of a screw thread. It just happens. You see it in every type of screw, unfortunately. And lenses seem to get dirty if you don't take care of them. pretty quickly. So we're going to clean these out. I try to get all the gunk that's in into one big clump like that, and then I can just, a lot of it's from the Q-tip itself. That's why it's important not to just use Q-tips, because they are not always the best tool. So now we're going to go ahead and attach this piece. I want to just double check that I've gotten all the gunk and grime out of there. So I'm going to hold it up to the ceiling real quick, but you guys won't be able to see. Actually, this piece here looks crystal clear except for a little spot which looks like a fingerprint on the back here. So we'll go ahead and fix that, but that doesn't really matter because we can clean that later. So that is looking perfect. Let me check this guy real quick. And that is good. So these are ready to be put back together, and it is as simple as screwing this in here. And you don't have to do it super tight because you don't want it to get stuck in there, and you don't want to have to pry it out. So usually hand tightening for most lens gear is a good way to go. I always tighten the outside a bit more than I do anything else. So we're almost there, and you'll hear it sort of stop. And there we go. So this piece is all ready to go. You can see it's making a pretty cool design, I don't know, in that shadow of the lights above. And now we can start reassembling. I believe this piece is next. Maybe? Yeah, that looks about right. I'm just doing this by memory because I don't have anything written down right now. So we're going to put it back together and see if it works. Let me double check. This guy holds this. This is the fun thing about taking apart older camera gear especially, is that they're all built really around the same idea, because they're all lenses, so they're all built similarly, but they're never the same. So you never quite know how to put a lens back together unless you actually do it. Because even in this series of lens, there are differences. Oh, that's not even screwing on. But yes, there we go. Okay. So I think all I've got to do is, got a little hair there. Screw this guy back in there. And then we're good to go to the other side. That's on the other side. That's not even to this. So, yeah. Alright. Nothing broken yet. And the way you close this is that the thread is on the inside of this metal piece, and you just use your fingernails, or you can use tweezers if you've got them, or just anything to tighten this. And this is one that I like to leave pretty loose. Do want to tighten it enough to keep all the lens elements in place, so it's not loose within the camera, but you don't want it to, see, like that's still pretty loose, so we're going to keep tightening this until I can't tighten it anymore. That's getting a little better. And then if you can't finger tighten it anymore, you can use a screwdriver and these letters along the inside of the lens. You have to be careful not to hit the lens and scratch it, but you can take a screwdriver or any sort of flat object and push it back and tighten it. And that's probably where some of these scratches came from on this particular lens, because I'm going to do it myself. So now we've got everything in working order, and we're going to go ahead and begin to attach this back part. This is the part that I'll probably end up screwing up and having to take on and off again, just because I've never done this on this particular model of lens. So we'll figure it out. I'm just going to go around this outside of here because it is a bit greasy, a bit dirty too. Rest of this I'll leave alone just because I don't want to screw any of that up. And if I remember correctly, they go on either side, so it's like that. It should fall back in. Might have to maneuver it. We'll play around. Probably have the angle wrong. But that's the excitement of doing stuff like this is figuring out how to do it and learning how to take care of your own equipment. Because I do not like not knowing about the stuff I own. Being careful, I don't really want to force this in, and I can't remember off the top of my head how it enters this. That's okay. Might have to push this. Oh, well, that sort of did it. There we go. Now it's back on there, and now I just have to add the screws. And then we've got this piece to go. How does it go on here? I believe it goes like this, maybe. This makes more sense. Right like that. Right there. So we will screw these back into place, hopefully without losing any of these screws. And we'll do a final cleanup of this lens, and we will be good to go. These lenses are quite a lot of fun. They're very cheap, they're very durable, and they're a lot of fun to take apart and mess with. This particular one I have declicked the aperture. There is a great review, or a great tutorial actually how to do this exact lens by a man named Steve Oakley. He's got a very good YouTube channel on all sorts of different video production and camera gear, so go check him out. I'll put a link in the description. We've got our 3 large screws in there, and we can go ahead and check now if the lens works correctly. We can see our aperture ring is turning and it's not making any sort of bad noise, so that's good. Focus ring is good. We're going to check our buttons, that the springs are still working on this mount here. All of that's turning in conjunction. So we have done it correctly. Once this is back on, we can test the aperture rings just to double check. These screws are so tiny, I'm not sure how I'm going to pick them up. If I can't get a hold of them, we may be in trouble. There we go. unscrew after this. I would highly recommend, if you own a Canon or a Nikon, or I guess any camera, if you're interested in doing any sort of video or photography, I'd highly recommend checking out any sort of vintage lens, because a lot of them are cheap, and if you don't have a lot of money to spend on lenses right off the bat, or if you have had nice lenses in the past and would like to experiment, these Olympus lenses are great. They're cheap. They get amazing quality despite the age. I mean, this is the age of film cameras when these lenses were released, and they hold up to, if not better than, most bottom-end 50mm lenses today released by any company. And I guess you could say that about any of the Olympus focal lengths, is that you're not gonna be able to find anything cheaper than a used one of these that gives you any sort of similar performance or quality. So these things are really, really awesome when it comes to aspects like that. Budget productions, you can fill a camera's entire focal length for a couple $100, the cost of a decent Canon lens. So you just have to think of what you're going to be using these lenses for, and what you want them to or how you want them to function. Oop. Flip that over. I believe I have to hold this in place to get the aperture rings working. It's been a while since I've used unless something was incorrectly. We may have an issue here. I think I know what the issue is, so I have to take this top piece off yet again. But we will soon be finished. These are some of the more difficult things to do when taking apart lenses, is putting this particular piece back on and making sure everything functions correctly. So we're going to take it off and hopefully figure our issue out pretty quickly. Well, because I'm not putting on the right thing. Everything looks good, so I think it might have been just going crazy and I wasn't doing the correct play, because I don't have an adapter for this particular lens for anything right now, so there's no way to test it. So that's kind of disappointing. Alright, so we are back, and I have finished and I had fixed the lens. There's a little wire that comes up that you have to match up a tab with this silver part here, and it has it on most old lenses, or at least a similar mechanism, and it's just very difficult on some lenses to get back together. And so we found it, and it's all back to normal now. So if I squeeze these two tabs, and the aperture ring works wonderfully, if you can see that. But go from f1.4 to f16, and we're good to go. So this is all finished, and we can put it all back in our case. We can screw this on, and there we go. It's all cleaned, and we've managed to make this lens almost brand new. I hope you enjoyed the video, and stay tuned for more lens camera technology stuff. So enjoy and have a good day.